Welcome back to WAAAGH Tactics. We're here to talk about the rise of the green tide. Well, in the metaphoric sense, as the Orks have made a bit of a comeback. It's all good. There's some conjecture as to why that may be, but nonetheless, I like to think it's the Ork player perseverance. The fact that for the most part, Ork players that are true Ork players have been kind of figuring things out and kind of putting the pedal to the metal. But I also have a idea that a lot of the really most elite players in the world were at that championship team cup 8-player event, and for that event that kind of might have changed the numbers up a little bit, but that doesn't mean that Orks still aren't awesome, right? The community's still awesome. So today we're going to take a look at some of the Ork players that did well, which was a bit of War Horde, but we did still have a dash of the dreaded mob. So that'll be awesome to talk about today. So like always, let's give a shout out to our sponsor, the Baron of Dice, as the chat said. As Baron of Dice helps us with our paint competition and allows us to get things done. Check the description for 5% off, as nobody likes Texans. So shout out to the Baron of Dice. Let's get stuck in, lads. So today for the Meta Monday, because we like to take a look at the stats and the facts, we have Orcs sitting at a 46% win rate, with the War Horde being at a stunning 58% win rate. And we're going to look at some of those players that did well. I like to think it was also, team events. People got to get lined up with maybe a couple, more favorable matchups might have come into play too. So there's a bunch of reasons why there could be. There was a Cult of Speed, one player that did well over their games. I really couldn't find him. He must have been somewhere hiding in one of the teams, and I just didn't find him somewhere. So we'll have to give him another look at one day soon. We have The Hunt at 40%, Bully Boys 33%, and then Dreadmob with a 30%, even though we had a player who went 4-1 with them. So we are going to be showing off that player. It's funny because Dreadmob is the perfect, like I always say, the perfect attachment to mess all the stats up, because it's always going to look memeish and hilarious. It's always going to have people that just don't care and run whatever walkers they want. What do I mean by that? Well, I just happened to walk across and come across a funny little Ork list where somebody took double Stampas and a Gorkanaut, 1 unit of Grots, and I think in like 2 mechs or a mech. I didn't, I think it was 2 mechs. That was his whole list. And he went 2-1. Yes, he went 2-1 in RTT with double Stampa and a Gorkanaut on his list. And that's what I'm talking about with Dreadmob, where it's just going to throw the math off all the time because the Ork community doesn't care. So they just run whatever they want. So shout out to that guy for running the double Stampas. I think that was freaking hilarious. So let's take a look at some of these players. I do have some notes. Shout out to Mr. Joel Ramiel, who's actually in chat, so maybe he can answer some questions if I mess anything up that we're going to go on here. But we're going to talk about the 2024 Michigan GT Warhammer 40K Championship. So, of course, this was in Michigan, no brainer. It had 130 players at this event, so quite big, quite huge. And you can see Dark Angels ended up winning this event. Some of the Ork players we went over, one of the Ork players we went over ended up facing this guy who ended up winning the event. So some tough competition out here. You can see that there's actually 2 players that are Orks at back-to-back that are both playing War Horde that we're about to cover. That is 13 and 14th place. So they were right on top of each other in the literal aspect of that in the rankings. So they could even had like a, I guess because when they lost their games, would have put them in different kind of brackets. So they might not have faced each other. So like I said, let's take a shout out and take a look at my boy Joel Ramiel. Hopefully I'm not messing up your name, homie. So he has a War Horde list. We have Boss Snikra, Gaz Gul Traka, 3 beast bosses on foot, 1 with Edwapa's Kill Chopper, 3 units of Beast Naga Boys, followed by 2 5-man units of Flash Kits. Sorry, I'm gonna mess that up. 1 Gretchen unit, just minimum size unit. 1 unit of commandos with simply the breacher. He didn't have other special weapons. He preferred just to have combat arms, maybe to save times on dice rolling and such. 3 Mega Nobz, so he did go for that premium third, right? That's kind of, we'll talk about what his thoughts on that later. He had 2 units of Storm Boys, and then the awesome back to 9th edition, triple kill rigs. So it's pretty awesome how you kind of mixed this up where he had a Beast Nagas, but he still brought Gazgul Thrakas. Some might see a bit of redundancy or less lethality being taken away from the Beast Boss because you're activating the lethals when he's doing sustaining criticals. Normally you're trying to spike more hits on that. If they're in Gaz's range for lethal, there's a good chance that you're going to lose some of those possible devastating wounds. With that said, giving it to the Snagga boys makes them devastatingly more damage, and it pretty much offsets that. So I like that he really took advantage of that. 2 5-man units of flash kits are so good for doing nice skirmishing. When I discuss skirmishing, guys, it's the units that people are willing to kind of throw away in small engagements in early game to figure the enemy out, and or they're a versatile unit that can be used for screening, scoring, and just straight up dying for points and attrition, right? So flash kits in a weird way can be used for that. You can even argue to take them into reserve as little 5-man units to get better positioning down gun lanes on certain deployments. So flash kits are super versatile. For sure, bring them. I really do like that he has commandos, but when we talked about some things he will look for about changing about this list, he did end up swapping out a couple things here and there. We're talking about the end for Zod, because everybody loves Zod. So he's going to even have more lethality in that. So let's take a look at my boy's path to victory. I do have a bit of notes, but like I said, he's in chat, so you guys can ask him directly. I'm going to move my little monitor so I can be able to see a little bit more clearly in case you guys were off to my side. Sometimes I mischeck so that. All right, so let's take a look at his first opponent. He ended up going into the Tyranids invasion fleet. On paper, and statistically speaking, and because of the kind of versatility Tyranids bring, this could be quite a hard matchup for an Orc player, especially if they're both in line as the same skill, same about the same skill ceiling for both players. So we have a Broodlord, Hive Tyrant, Neural Tyrant, Gargoyles, Biovores, 3 units of Exocrines, a Gene Stealer Bomb, 2 Lictors, 2 Maleceptors, a Pyovore, and 2 Tyrannofexes, with one with Acid Spray and the other with the Rupture Cannon. So Rupture Cannon is the one for super destroying enemy vehicles, and the other one's for the Great Overwatch. You pretty much stick those in the middle of someone's, not in the middle of the army. Around the middle of the table because how gigantic he is. You try to pop the Feel No Pain on him when he's in Synapse range. Then he's a Land Raider with a 5-up Feel No Pain. It's pretty much annoying. It's not necessarily Land Raider, doesn't get Armor of Contempt, but you catch my drift. Pyovore is always going to be used as something coming in from reserves. For the most part, you'll pretty much be compounding that little dude by ignoring cover on something and allowing Tyranids to throttle those shooting. But the real, meat and potatoes of this list is clearly this Gene Stealer Bomb for the most part. You're going to have the Broodlord come in and immediately be pressuring you. So with that said, he said he used the extra 500 points from reserves for Smoke and Mirrors to put all 3 empty kill rigs and gas into strategic reserves. So that's quite a move. Rapid ingress in the top of turn 2 and mount the kill rigs in at the bottom to turn 2 to kill a bunch of bugs. Not to mention that he has the commandos. The commandos can be used to kind of screen out and keep the Broodlord and the Gene Stealers at bay, as they was want to, scout, run up into you, and throw a bunch of devastating wounds. I believe that's still a rule. Maleceptors, of course, can be a difficult issue to kind of navigate with Orcs. This is where you do still want to have the throwing grenades, and you're going to have the kill rig laser, lit las cannons with their psychic attacks are really going to help you here. Of course, they have their 4-up invuln and they can just bounce it. But the point is that they're looking to pop that Feel No Pain. If they for sure know that they're just going to get all of their offense put on them in combat, then it makes it easy for their CP management. They're like, okay, I'm just going to use it in the shooting. If I combat, but you can put more damage into them if you're using multiple phases here. And of course, like I've said before, this is kind of funny how flash kits can still kind of shoot into something like a Maleceptor if it's not in cover, especially, and just put straight volume on it and pop lethals. I'm not saying he did that, but if you're dealing with this kind of problem, it's funny how Orcs have weird answers for this. And that's one thing that Joel did say he liked about his list as a whole, is he does have shooting potential and kind of mixed combined arms, and that's helped him kind of overcome some of these armies. And in this case, I wouldn't be surprised if Tyranids weren't one of them with that, because he ended up having las cannons and things to do damage at range, threatening exocranes or things that are standing directly in front of him. So good job taking out the Tyranids in that case, because nobody likes Tyranids when you're Orks. They have some good damage output. Now, here was his second game, and this is actually where he ended up taking his first loss right here, and pretty much his only loss. That was not pretty much. It was his only loss for the event. So it's called Dark Angels, I suppose. Dark Angels are just a little bit of a menace of the meta right now. A lot of people are running them in a bunch of different variations. There's a lot of really good factions out there. The meta is quite balanced, so it's not like they're really destroying everybody. But when you run into them and you don't have the tools, and a lot of Orc players simply lack the tools, and Orc lists lack the tools to go into this, and it's not surprising because you can argue it's actually the Codex problem, not even the Orc player. You could end up teching to everything into them, but then you're completely offset from the rest of the meta because they're a bit unique with their weirdness, right? So we'll talk about that in a second. But mind you, a Dark Angels player won this event. So, and he had a similar list to this. We have an Apothecary Biologist with Fire Discipline, Azrael, and a Judiciar, of course, for that beautiful fight first. He has a 5-man unit of Assault Intercessors, 3 units of Assault Intercessors with Jump Hex, 3 units of Deathwing Knights, an Eradicator Bomb. This is where the Biologists went. Infiltrator Squad, Inner Circle Companions. These guys are quite durable themselves as well. 1 Repulsor, and then only 1 single Scout unit, which is kind of like that weird spot where you're like, oh, Commandos, they have these Scouts, and I can't really trade with them because they're so much cheaper than me, but they might just get in my way. You still appreciate having Commandos for that reason. That way they can't directly gum you up. Let's say you keep your kill rigs on the table. But still, this is a lot of durability on this list. And I do have the notes behind what he had it, but behind how this game kind of went. But let me show you some of these data sheets in case you haven't directly faced them. You know, it might be hard for maybe your local game store to be getting a bunch of Deathwing Knights. Maybe, you know, your friends trying to bring them. So let's look at what they're kind of dealing with anyways. So we have Azrael. He's the name character. He can adopt a bunch of different, you know, detachment rules because he has the Inner Circle keyword, but in this case, it's Gladius, right? What you're really looking for here is that he gives your unit sustain 1s. He gives you a command point, and he can also give your unit a 4-up feel no pain access, which of course going into like Thousand Suns, that's why you would bring him. But if for Orcs, that sucks for like you want to kill something with bomb squigs or grenades, for example, that he's in, and he can possibly just do that because it's free for him. But really, it's the sustain 1, so he's pretty much getting two of the fire disciplines to an extent, not exactly, but to an extent with that. And then, of course, we have the Deathwing Knights, which I'm sure are out of your store and in stock in your local game shop. So we have little thick boys here, and the main thing here is that they just subtract 1 from damage. They're still Space Marines and Gladius, so they get access to fallback and charge. They get Armor of Contempt, of course, and then these 2 can pop the 4-up feel no pain. So typically, I would advise what I just said with bomb twigs and grenades into you. In this case, it's like not even worth it because for them, they might just be like, oh, this is your go turn. It's the wall. You're trying to hurt me. I'm going to just do this because you're standing in front of me. Why not? And to talk about how Joel ended up kind of using this, even though he did end up losing, the couple things that I did like that he did was, 1, he was able to use Gaz's unit and to tie up 2 units of Deathwing Knights for 3 battle rounds. As he used Art as Nails. So you can see right here as we're looking at the Deathwing Knight data sheet, they're all strength 6, right? I was gonna say typically, but they're typically running the Maces of Absolution, and then one of the great swords for the Sergeant. But the point is that they're being offset to wounded on 5s, and then they can actually still get good saves of a 4-up with Gaz's unit. Of course, one of those units are getting the feel no pains. So I did like that he had that in his strategy and his setup. That was a good. But like he said, he struggled to deal with the Judiciar with fighting first as he couldn't carry early enough. But he thought that would help him have made it kind of a more winnable game. But in truth, they're not easy to kill. And like I said, for the Inner Circle Companions, because they're actually quite durable. They're -1 to hit. They have 3 wounds, and they too can pop Armor of Contempt. He did want to use Wear Towers and a bunch of kill rigs into them, but that's where the Eradicator Bio Bomb just came up and ended up killing them. But Gaz did end up killing 9 Deathwing Knights in total, so that's freaking fantastic. Whoa, to Gaz for getting him stuck in like that. Very difficult matchup for Orcs. Even if you do have Gaz, you can overcome this. We've gone over this week in, week out. There's been several Orc lists and players that have overcome this, from the Dreadbob to War Horde, but it does take 1 exceptional player, 2, you know, the right conditions, and 3, you actually have to have tools. for the most part, kind of like gas or a similar gas equivalent of damage output, like a big unit of mech guns where you're, re-rolling with sustain. But that's a different talk for a different day. So nothing to be ashamed of for him losing that game. Still put up 71 points. Really love to see that. Now he came back for vengeance after that, getting a 100 point in this third game, his third matchup, where he went into Imperial Fist. The guy said 4.0. So my boy's been trying. This is his fourth iteration, and I'm not making fun of him. I have an Imperial Fist army as the only Space Marine army that I have. Yes, they're straight up yellow boys with the red trim. So he's running a Gladius task force. He has a Captain and Terminator armor with Fire Discipline, Captain with Jump Pack, Honor Vehement, Tech Marine, Tech Marine, Tech Marine. So we got the triple Tech Marines. What's this going to look like? Pulsar, 3 units of Assault Intercessors with Jump Pack, a Blade Guard Veteran Squad, 3 Gladiator Lancers. That's pretty legit. 1 Hellblaster Squad with only 5-man unit, and then 2 Terminator squads, one being a nice fat 10-man unit. So there's more of a theme, kind of interesting list. I'm not sure if he should have paid for the Gladiator Lancers. This doesn't look obviously the most competitive list, but my guy's trying here. He's trying with his Imperial Fist. I understand it. One thing just to take away from this game with Jordan with Romuald is he wanted to say that he was able to kind of protect himself with the Commandos turn 1 from being assaulted by the Jump Pack dudes, and he pretty much used gas to pretty much tank things completely on turn 1. Of course, keep in mind the kill rig with this Feel No Pains means that Gladiator Lancers aren't going to kill them as reliably as you might think as the Orc player, and definitely as a Space Marine player is going to be hoping when he goes into the matchup. Usually he's going to be like, yes, I got 3 Lancers and you got kill rigs, but they're not all going to get line of sight to them at the same time, especially because I like to say put kill rigs on the flanks. So you shouldn't be able to get line of sight with all the kill rigs. All the Lancers on 1 kill rig. Therefore, you can actually have a good chance of surviving, even if 2 look at you. For the most part, if 1 looks at you, you're very likely to be well off unless your dice just completely fail you, which definitely can happen, because we Orcs. So we have his 4th matchup here. Make sure I'm missing that. There we go. So in his 4th matchup, he has the Greater Demons. Shalaxi Hellbane does what now? That's pretty much what he said. So we have, sorry, I looked at something here. Be'lakor, a Bloodthirster, the Great Unclean One with Endless Gift. That's the 4-up Feel No Pain, my boys. A Shalaxi Hellbane with a beat stick, as I'm sure you all know. A Bloodletter, 2 units of 3 Nurglings, nice little small units for infiltration. 40 points, guys, to just get up in someone's face with these weird offset models and -1 to hit auras. 2 units of Plague Bears. These guys are oddly durable. 2 wounds of pop. T5. I believe they have invulns because demonics. And then a Beast of Nurgle, another oddly durable unit that can regen if you don't kill it in that phase to full health. 2 Flamers. Okay, so not complete demon spam, but it is 4 of the most elite and best ones. And of course, in the Orc matchup, Be'lakor ends up being not a priority as much because you're just like, well, you're for shooting and I'm for crumping. You should just kind of run them down. So in this one, he was saying overall was pretty one-sided. You can imagine, since he has gas and triple beast bosses, that when it's go time, he can punch away the Bloodthirster, Be'lakor, Shalaxi. You don't necessarily kill the Great Unclean One if you can help it, right? You don't try to throw everything into him because he has a 4-up Feel No Pain. You can be too much commitment and then you can get cleaned up. A lot of the time, you kind of want to box him out with Grots, Storm Boys, whatever, File Skids, things that can get in the way. Get him stuck in some little part of the table and just kind of ignore him for a second, kill everything else, and then come deal with him later if you have to. So in this one, he pretty much emptied his kill rigs, allowed them to be screens, as there's obviously not any shooting in this case, so he doesn't have to worry about kind of being in the open if he can't hide everything. Therefore, he's able to keep them disembarked, put the kill rigs forward, use them as big move blocking screens. Most people wouldn't think that, but that's a good idea because none of the small stuff's going to be able to do it. They're going to have to commit one of their big, thick Greater Demons in this case, which are all about 300, over 300 points besides the Great Unclean One, of course, with the 4-up Feel No Pain, which is why I said you don't go into him. He's the one they want you to go into, right? So, of course, he wouldn't go into that. Joel knows more than that. And then, of course, he doesn't want to get battle shocked against Greater Demons. And so, in that case, he was trying to stay away from that. From what I remember, if they pass it, what if they get the D3 mortal wounds? I think they suffer D3. I think you suffer D3, and then they heal D3 if they pass it, right? I have to look into it again. Nonetheless, great job by Joel for taking out one of these monster mashes. Of course, you can get a little bit more monstery and mashy, but that's still quite a potent list. And plague bears and stuff have sticky objectives, so it's really nice, good win right there. Going into his 5th game, it is time for the World Eaters. In this case, it's called the Lord of Skulls. So let's take a look. Can you imagine what's on this list? I'll let you guys take a guess at what's on this list, right? It's called Lord of Skulls. So we have Angron, Lord Invocatus, World Eaters, Master of Execution, 2 Jackals, which these guys have nice sticky objectives as well. 1 fat unit of Berserkers. That's to escort this World Eaters Master of Executions. I'll show you him in a bit, in a second. And then a Corn Berserker, like I said, Corn Berserkers, big unit, pretty much just to protect him. A World Eaters Rhino, which is for the same unit. So it's their version of the Nob. You know how we have the War Boss with the Nobz in it? This is their version of that, and I'll show you why. We have a unit of 8 pounds, it's a 3-man unit, but we have 3 of those. And then a Corn Lord of Skulls, and then 1 simple basic World Eaters Chaos Spawn, which were voted #1 unit in 40k, which is funny. They are super annoyingly durable and cheap as they can be. So I'm sure most of you guys are familiar, but real quick, World Eaters, Master of Executions. Of course, he gets 5 first. He's really good at taking out characters. He can re-roll the hit roll and wound roll. He's sitting at 2 ballistic weapon skill 2+, strength 7, -2, 3 damage, but his enhancement of the Berserker Glaive makes that strength 8 and then damage 3. He gets devastating wounds and precision, so of course he can precision out your character, re-roll the hit rolls, a wound roll, get devastating wounds to hopefully the first barrage of devastating wounds. He's hoping to kill your character, and then from there the leftover kind of damage bleeds over into 3 wound models. So quite killy. And then this is one thing I want to point out that I think a lot of Orc players kind of forget, and people in general kind of forget, is this basic 8-bound unit isn't just for being killy. In a lot of cases, a Guild World Eaters player will understand that you really want to take advantage of the re-rolling wounds. So you actually have a 6-inch aura of re-roll wounds to wound. So this is a very easy unit to stage as a Scout's 6, and then it moves 9. So you're getting a 15-inch movement without even advancing. Of course, you're going to advance. So these guys can get set up and then give re-rolls to melee to a bunch of different units that are on the battlefield. So as they each go one at a time, one that's staging somewhere near them can even be giving a reroll, or if you don't have a sufficient counter punch to kind of keep them respectful, right? That's what I'm trying to say, that they have really reliable output. So in this one, Joel said that he positioned his commandos as bait, but it ended up not having to go that way because he ended up going first. He ended up moving the kill rigs to kind of get up in the way again, like he wanted to. The enemy opponent didn't end up having enough CP when it was pretty much go time, so he couldn't interrupt, and he allowed Joel to do a full-on charge with everything in full commit. He ended up killing Angron and his Lord of Skulls. Gaz charged to the Avocado Lord and the Avocado Lord and Chaos Spawn, killing both. And the main MVPs in a sense, not necessarily, he didn't say this, but Flash Gets killed his 3-man units of 8 pounds. So that's why Flash Gets are so fundamental. Is one thing that makes it different here in this matchup is that or in this case, Joel had shooting. So he had the last cannon potential, he had the Flash Gets potential. The combined arms kind of aspect helped him throw this win over on his side. When you have some combined arm aspects, you can clean screens, so you can shoot people out of the way. You can do damage on different activations. And in this case, that's really what Joel was doing. So great job by Joel for that one, because he ended up getting that W as well with a fat 95-point victory. So to sum it up, as I'll show you Joel's list one more time before we move on. He had a boss Snikra Gazgul Thraka, triple beast bosses, one being a Adwapa skill chopper, triple beast bosses on Beast Snaggle Boys for those beast bosses, 2 5-man units of Flash Gets, 1 minimum size unit of Gretchen, 1 commando, 3 Mega Nobz, 1 with Killsaw and Power Claw. The reason he chooses for that, most people do, is obviously if I needed more AP, I'm going to choose a Killsaw. If I need more volume of punches, I'm going to pick the Power Claw. No, you do not get to use both. You have to select. But in War Horde, that's fine, because you have sustained hits and you have lethal from Gaz and such, so it feels good. And it's a good tool to understand. 2 storm 5-man units of storm boys, and then triple kill rig. He full went on for the triple kill rig. I really love that. So as his final thoughts on this, he said his beast snaggle boys and the beast triple beast bosses were his MVP unit combo, and he argues that it's the best unit combination in our codex. He said the 2 5-man units of flash kits and the war tower were game changing a lot of the time, and his opponents would usually say, wow, this is more orc unit than I'm used to seeing on the normal orc list. He did make some changes here to where, like I said, he ended up complementing the list with Zagra Wartsnaga and a unit of super runs. He dropped one Mega Knob unit for that. Yeah, you dropped the commando unit for that, actually. Ooh, and one mega boss, War Mega Nobz, excuse me. So he ended up pretty much swapping out Zod for the commandos. I still think it's worth it. The fact that you can here we go them on critical 5+ to hit, even though I usually wouldn't do that. The games where you can get free go to ground is really nice. So Zod ends up working out really good. You can surround transports that have durable units inside of them or kill units. That way they don't disembark. You can tag a bunch of shooting armies in matchups. Really screen alpha strikes in a way that's a bit more rewarding because you don't always lose the entire unit. So yeah, I can see why he ended up going for that. So that being said, shout out to Joel Romuel. And one more thing that I want to shout out is he does have an event for... make sure I don't mess that up. He has an event on October 26th and 27th in Grand Wayne Convention Center in Fort Wayne, Indiana. They'll have the Old World, Warhammer 40K, Age of Sigmar, Bolt Action, Magic the Gathering, and Saga, Dark Magic, and Dream. So check him out on that. He's on Facebook and our Discord, so you can definitely find him. I recommend you get stuck in, as he's lovely, and so are his lads. So let's take a look at the next orc player that also ended up being... I jumped ahead. Oops. I'm jumping ahead too much. Yeah, I did. All right, cool. Ended up being another orc player who was at the same event. Like I said, he was right behind Joel Romuel. His name is Stefan Olinsky from Death or Glory. So shout out to Death or Glory, of course, to the Grand War Boss, which is Brad Chester out there that's always been doing good with War Horde. He hasn't been playing Orcs for a bit. He jumped off to some other gits, but his teammate ended up coming out and making a splash. So shout out to Death and Glory. They do have a YouTube channel. I do recommend you check them out, especially if Stefan is going to get his own perspective. Hopefully he did. I haven't seen yet if he did get around to it, but I'm sure somebody will talk about it. Like I said, Brad is a big fan of Orcs, so shout out to Brad Chester. So let's take a look at my boy's list. I almost messed that up. So his list is called the Red Tide. So yes, he called it Red Tide, but this is very much a War Horde list. He did pick the War Horde detachment for that. So on his list, he has 1 Beast Boss on foot, a Boss Snikra, Gazgul Thraka, and triple War Bosses. Triple. Yes, I said it like that. 2 Beast Snagga Boys as his only battle line units, triple trucks, 2 minimum size unit of Gretchen, 1 kill rig, 2 Mega Nobz, because of course that's the minimum size squad. Again, you can see like when we looked at Joel Ramios, he has a kill saw and a power claw, of course, so he can offset and pick. I'm going to get the chat here in a bit. And then we have 3 knob units, but yes, he kicked it back to index times where he said, I'm not bringing 1 Scapel unit. I'm bringing 2 of these big killy 10-man bricks and then 1 5-man unit. But yes, he very much did have the 5-man unit with big chopper. He did. I double checked, and the other guys were definitely with power claws. Sorry, I should have wrote that in the presentation. They were with power claws, but the 5-man unit was legit with big choppers, guys. So he was looking to hit on 2s and just straight for straight volume sometimes. I really love to see that, as not everything has great armor saves. We do know that a lot of things do, but, you know, quantity is a quality in itself, my lads. So then he has 2 5-man units of Storm Boys. So I really much like this list. Brings back a bit of an index hammer feel with all the Mega Nobz. Sorry, not Mega Nobz. With all the knobs, I was still running Gaz in index, even though a lot of people weren't. Not a lot of people. People weren't at first, and then they came around to a very popular in the GT level. But I really like that he bought Snickrot. People have been kind of sleeping on Snickrot again for the most part. A lot of people are high on Zod. Not everybody wants to pay for all these big units of Gretchen or be giving up Call the Horde. So I totally respect that. But I really respect that he still went for Infiltrate. My guys, if you're not taking advantage of Infiltrate and or Scout, I do suggest that you look into it because it does benefit you in Pariah Nexus. As you can see, we've done 2 lists. Both of them are War Horde. Both of them had Infiltration, and one of them is trading out for Scouting, which is still pretty fantastic. So let's take a look at, oops, I pulled up too much from him. Whoa, here we go. Let's take a look at my boy, not my boy, I guess, Death or Glory's boy, Stefan Olinsky. And if I'm saying your name wrong, I'm sorry, lad. I'm sorry, I might get. And shout out to chat. And of course, Fighter CM for saying a shout out for the Baron of Dice. Thank you for Joe Ramy for being in the chat. And to everybody that showed up early, I give you a whoa for showing up to the chat and being stuck in, lads. I really appreciate it. So we have in his first game, Stefan is going into, I don't want to mess up clicking the wrong thing. Dark Eldar. Really like to see that because this is one of those things that I'm, if you told me this matchup was happening, I'd be like, ooh, that a lot of Orc players are going to drop the ball on that. It's not necessarily a clean matchup there. And one thing I want to bring out, you can see that he doesn't have flash kits in this matchup. So it was even more technical than you could think because for the most part, flash kits make this a bit more manageable. Sorry, guys, I have a dry throat today, so I'm drinking water. Normally I don't. So we have Drakari with Sky Splinter Assault. Okay, I see you. We have triple Archon, one with Night Shroud, and then Lilith Hexpress. 2 Beastmaster units. My boys, the Beastmasters. Do I have to pull them out again? If chat, you tell me. If you want me to pull up the Beastmaster data sheet again, I'll pull it up again. But what I'll say is this is the most annoying Blade of Wounds for 105 points that you would ever not expect as a casual player. This unit can scout about 8 inches, and then it can move, I think, 10-inch movement with, I think it's about 6 models, or it's some stupid number, like 7 models in the unit. A bunch of them have different wounds. Some have 3 of the wounds. All right, Chad told me to bring them out. I'm doing it. Give me a second. I'm going to pull up the Beastmaster. I brought them up before, but most people won't be expecting them. And you know what? I should bring it up because for the most part, your knowledge base going into Dark Eldar is really going to set the difference in when you win or lose, right? Luckily, I was able to get them until my cousin Christian, shout out to Christian, some matchups so he doesn't punish me in order for me to learn. So I was able to pick it up rather quickly. But if you've never seen it and you see something like this Beastmaster unit, you would blow your mind if it was at the GT level and it's your first time seeing it. And mind you, he has 2 of these on this. So like we said, yes, it is. It's a 7-man model unit. There's 1 Beastmaster, but he's accompanied by his beast. So there's 1 Clawed Fiend, 2 Chimera, and then 3 Razor Wing Flocks. It's not about the damage on this unit, guys. It's about the scouting, which is 9 inches, and then the movement, which is 12 inches. So I said 10, it's 12 inches. So you can see the Beastmaster himself has 3 wounds. The Fiend has 5 wounds. The Chimera each have 2 wounds, and the Razor Wing Flock have 3 wounds. That means if you're getting 2 damage attacks going into this, he can simply choose not to put it on the Chimera, put it on the Razor Wing Flock, then the Clawed Fiend, and then into the Chimera's last before it goes into his Beastmaster. As in, you're going to lose damage here because it's going to be offset by these guys having three wounds a pop. That's what we talk about when it's a Blade of Wounds. It's a lot of wounds spread out against multiple models. Orcs are filled up with damage too, right? And another thing that I found super dumb for me and annoying, right, is that these guys are T4. So if you use a unit of Beast-Snag, Basic Boys, for example, or a Stormboy unit to run into this, you're winning them on 4s. It still doesn't feel good. Again, Flash gets assist with this, but even more so, Infiltrators assist with this. That's why you need to do it. Oops, and I just realized I didn't have that on screen. What was I showing you guys? I'm a psycho. Boom. I'll give you a second to look at that again. You can see 12 inches, T4. This is 4 little individual data sheets. They are all toughness 4, but with different ablative wounds, sitting at 2, 3, the Fiend sitting at 5. And then, of course, they do have a certain amount of punches of straight volume. They have an anti-infantry 3+ weapon. They have some Clawed Fiend punches with devastating moves. They have lethal, and then they have sustain from the little Razor Wing. So it's even combat, and then you can reroll hits. Mind you, this guy has 2 of those units. 2 of those units. So even one simple boss snick rock can at least pull these guys at bay a little bit, as they cannot scout within 9 inches of boss snick rock. Or if you had commandos, right, like we talked about in other orc lists. Now we have the Cavalite Warriors, a unit of witches, Court of the Archon, 2 incubi, and then 2 units of mandrakes, 2 scourges for the fire and fade, Chronos, Talos, which have been slept on for a while, but for 50 points, guys, for this little thing, Orcs would love to have something like that durable for that, right? 1 mech gun, way more durable than a mech gun. 1 unit of Talos, which are 2 Talos pretty much for the value, 2 Raiders, and then 3 Venoms. Like I said here, guys, Orcs really want their space, and for the most part, Drakari can smother you. I'm very much under the impression that this was straight up all skill on Stefan Olinsky, and the fact that he's very likely familiar because Death or Glory do play at a very high tier level, and they do play team events. Therefore, I'm sure he got repetitions and practice out into Dark Eldar. He very much knew what was going on. First time I ran to Dark Eldar several times, I lost. Right away, the first game, and maybe in the second one I lost. If it wasn't the second one, then I won the second one. But it can go either way because how it reacts, and the Orcs don't necessarily have all the tools, so you just end up taking some things out. It's more difficult. The fact that he didn't even have flash kits, like I said, showing up his list again, makes it so you can see he was even more important. Fight on death is what I really like about War Horde going into any other alternate melee matchup, because you can end up trading Nobz and Snagaboys and stuff like that, and actually control the tempo of the game and still keep the rate of attrition up. So going into his second game, so shout out to him for winning that one. Not an easy one. That's a knowledge-based kind of win right there. Going into his second game, he went into the dreaded Blood Angels, which these guys are annoying the meta as a whole right now because they're just strong. And of course, we're going to see how they look when their actual books drop. So I'm not going to put too much time into this because this can all change by the time you guys end up really looking into it too much, right? No point in kind of learning the old rules. But his Gladius Task Force, so he gets access to advance in charge, fall back in charge, will really help Space Marines as a whole. You have Chief Librarian Mephiston, Commander Dante, Captain in Gravis armor, so that's unique, and a Chaplain with Jump Pack. So he doesn't have the Sanguinor with the chalice, not the Sanguinor, excuse me. Yeah, he doesn't have the Sanguinor for the coming out of the sky and fighting characters. He doesn't have the Priest for the Feel No Pains. Those are 2 very, very potent unit characters right there. You can see he doesn't have the dreaded top meta combo, but he still has the dreaded, meta list and faction. So be careful. He has 1 big unit of Assault Intercessors for 150, and then a small 5-man unit of Assault Intercessors. 1 big brick of Aggressors, whereas that's where that captain was, the Fire Discipline. 1 Death Company Marine with Jetpacks unit and then the Sanguinary Guard for 155. That unit's a bit overpriced to me, but it is what it is. Still, they do got that Armor of Contempt and 2+ save, boys. A Stern Guard unit, a Death Company Dreadnought, the Gladiator Lancer, a Predator Annihilator, a Redemptor Dreadnought, and then an Impulsor. So not the most efficient version of the Blood Angels. Yes, you can actually very much get off with playing a Blood Angels vehicle heavy list, but for the most part using Ball Predators in that case. This list didn't have that. I'm very much, like I said, the impression that Stefan was very good overall. I know just from his team that he's a good player. So I'm sure that he kind of overcame those things with a quickness. Make sure I didn't click the wrong thing. Yes, I did. Okay, I didn't. Yes. All right. Then we go into his third matchup. This is a straight 100-point victory right here. So it's against the Angry Boys, the World Eaters. So we have Angron, Lord Invocatus, 2 units of Jackals for that sticky, 1 unit of 8-bound, 2 units of Exalted 8-bound, and then 2 units of the World Eaters Chaos Spawn, 2 World Eaters Forge Fiend with the Ectoplasmic Cannons, and then a War Dog Carnivore. War Dog Carnivore is pretty solid. Not who am I to judge it? I'm not judging nobody, right? And I'm not trying to talk down list. What I was going to say is what's interesting to me on a World Eaters list, though, as much as I do like Carnivores, they're really cool looking and they do great damage. But what I was really like about it, especially if you're already shooting on your list, is if you have a Mauler Fiend, right? Because the Mauler Fiend gets, the World Eater one specifically gets plus 2 inches if someone's already hurt. If they're blooded, I'm pretty sure what's called. So you can come in from reserve and end up getting a nice sweet 7-inch charge from reserves with a Mauler Fiend. So it's another ally that you might see. I'm just pretty much well, I guess it's not an ally, it's part of their codex, but it's another big unit that might you be seen. But if you're bringing a carnivore, that's something that sometimes gets strategic reserves. So yeah, I do like that this World Eaters list did bring some Forge Fiends, but a lot of the time they can get away with no shooting. And like I didn't point this out earlier, but I should have. It's a big unit of Exalted 8-pound, so he does have that missile. I do find World Eaters to be very potent when they just break down their list into MSU and still bring Angron, as in they just break into a bunch of 3-man units of 8-bound, a bunch of 3-man unit of Exalted 8-bound, get some stacked Jackals for sticky objective, and then fill up the rest maybe with Chaos Bomb and, like I said, Angron. Not that you have to bring Angron, but I just like to bring him because he makes the game funny. So this is still a good, quite efficient list, not the most efficient that you would ever see across the meta, just because you do sometimes see, Berserker, the Master of Executions, like we talked about before, or you do see Karn isn't actually like meta, but in an Orc matchup, he does kind of help because he will fight on death, so you can try to take a character down with him sometimes. That being said, a lot of the time it comes to who went first, who went second, and did you retain your CP so that you can do fight on death to try to offset this game. So 100 point there. Shout out to Stefan. I'm sure that he managed his resources quite well there and ended up getting that W. Let's take a look at his fourth game. So his fourth game was against the person who won the event, right here, Conan Jennings. And with that being said, let's take a look at Conan Jennings' list, because this was a Dadius Dark Angels task force. Of course, like we talked about, it's going to have the very potent. Oops, I just took away something. Sorry. Very potent Deathwing Terminator. So we have a Biologist Apothecary with Fire Discipline, Asriel, and a Judiciar, a unit of Assault Intercessors squad, 3 units of Assault Intercessors with jump packs, 3 units of Deathwing Knights, 1 big Eradicator brick, an Infiltrator, Inner Circle Companions, Repulsor, and then a Scout Squad. So these Inner Circle Companions, -1 to hit, 3 wounds of pop, quite durable, especially for their point values, hard to get rid of. And then you still have the Deathwing Knights that you have to deal with in that case. Of course, like I showed you earlier, they do have, boop, boop, boop. Oh, am I too close? I'm too close. Sorry. They do have the -1 damage. You got to be really prepared for that. Gas kind of helps, but if you don't have gas, he's just pretty much trying to bully you right there. Maces for anti-vehicle, anti-monster 2+. These guys do hit on 2s. And they do have 4 wounds of pop and a 4-up invuln. Very, very annoyingly durable. You do have Asriel for sustain 1s in here, giving you additional CP and access to a 4-up Feel No Pain. So, of course, you can imagine that he already has the Eradicator brick with the Biologist. And in this case, I'm pretty sure you could just put Asriel with the Inner Circle if you wanted to. I'm trying to see if there's another unit here that would have been better. Probably not. Oh, the Judiciar is going with the Inner Circle. Never mind. Asriel is definitely not going there. Judiciar is definitely going with the Inner Circle Companions for that fight first. Very potent list. Has the fight first, but then it has the ability to just stand back. Stand in the middle objective and any objective really, and just be like, come get it. If you get stuck in a fight with them, they'll fall back and charge you. If you play too turtley, they can advance and charge into you and then take the initiative away from you because they're Gladius. So shout out to Conan Jennings for winning the event, but I can see how that'd be very difficult for Stefan, because his list really does just have a bunch of Nobz, right? He does have our boy Gazgul on this list, but that still doesn't, deter the fact that even if Gaz is holding one of those guys into one of those units in place and slowly chipping them down, because normally it's 4 flat damage would be great into that kind of unit, but in this case it's 3, so he's not even chopping through them very effectively. And you have the Nobz trying to go in for their flat 2 damage, not really getting anything off there, and only a single kill reg, so even the last cannons from the Word Tower aren't really coming into play to help you kill those guys. So really difficult matchup. It's a behoove you to just go into that matchup knowing that it can be difficult, and we do sometimes have the units and the data sheets. Like if you have a Gork, of course Gork can get crump in and start messing them up, but you already know going into when you bring a Gork that there's some armies that just obliterate them. And 2, you see that they have an Eradicator brick on this list as well, so they're very much prepared for that. It just comes down to that's really good army right now, and Orks don't lack. Orks being a vastly 2 damage army lacks some of the tools into killing it. So nothing bad about losing that, especially to the person who wins the event. And then we go to his last matchup. So for his last matchup, he goes into the Tyranids. And again, it's invasion fleet. Invasion fleet is just straight up powerful, bro. Just like we're playing War Horde still with our codex, that's how Tyranid players are right now too. They're like, we get our, sustains or we get lethal. And Orks are like, yeah, we get sustained forever. So we have a Broodlord, and Hive Tyrant, and a Neuro Tyrant. Does this look familiar, Gits? A Gargoyle, a Biovore, triple Exocrines, a Gene Steel Brick, double Lictors, 2 Maleceptors, a Paravo, a Tyrannofex with Acid Spray, and then a Tyrannofex with Rupture Cannon. Wait, yeah. I'm like, didn't we just make sure I'm not putting on the wrong person's list? Yeah, that's the same. All right, guys. The reason I'm saying that is, did Joel end up playing the same guy? So I'm like, yeah, look. So both Orc players ended up running to the same Tyranid player. So this Tyranid player is definitely hitting Orcs right now. So sorry, Jude Rand. I'm not laughing necessarily at you. I'm just saying, what's a coincidence? I was like, I could have sworn I just seen that list too. When I was taking my notes, I thought I did too. So that's funny. Yeah. Let's get some mega knobs in chat. Thanks, Wapo, for that. Yeah. So of course, you do have Snickrot in this case, so he could try to hold back the Broodlord bomb. One thing I do want to mention that I didn't last time is the Gargoyle Brick. Gargoyle unit is such a great value screening unit against Orcs. They did increase the price on that. 85 points now makes it like not necessarily free to trade, but the fact that it can advance, shoot, and then move again after it shoots, it just has to shoot you and hit you. It doesn't have to do any damage or anything. Means that it's really, really good at kind of reactionary, getting in the Orc player's way, especially when you call the wall. And of course, whenever you call the wall against the Tyranid, sometimes you feel battle shock at the wrong time. So shout out to him for taking this one on. I do like that he did have gas. Like I always like to say, gas really helps offset a lot of our weaknesses, guys. So if you were ever wondering about gas, not only is he good for money wise, like monetary wise, per point, but he helps you offset some of these things like Tyranids, Space Marines, Land Raiders, weird stuff like that. The Orcs just struggle so much right now into the Codex, taking away our Mega Knobs for that. And so I'm sure, like I said, that Jordan just played this very well. This same guy had to go into both Stefan and Joe, so that's pretty brutal by him to be crushed by the Great WAAAGH 2 times back to back, even with his double Maleceptors. But you know what that is? Bringing one less Maleceptor means that spot you don't have the Maleceptor, that he's not getting his aura of -1 to hit, -1. You could just really get stuck in on that side of the battlefield and kind of punch through them. One thing I do recommend for Tyranids is getting stuck in fast and stuck in early. You don't really want to go a long game with them, as they're still Xenos, so they kind of want to play that similar style of I'll die for points because I never really expected to survive anyways. So that being said, shout out to Stefan, as that was his conclusion, going 4-1 at the Michigan GT. Like you see, he took his final loss in the 4th round, which is pretty nice of him. Pretty respectable. So this is the Red Tide. So we has 1 Beast Boss, followed by Boss Nikra, Gazgothraka, and then triple War Bosses. 2 units of Beast Snagga Boys, 3 trucks, because transports are awesome value, 2 units of Gretchen, a Kill Rig, 2 Mega Knobs, each with a Kill Saw and a Power Claw for the choice of what you want to profile you want to use. 3 units of Nobz, 2 of them being big 10-man bricks, and then that 5-man unit. We've finally seen it, guys. From all the talk, from all the babble that we have ever done, someone has decided I am bringing the 5 Nobz with big choppas with the War Boss. Yes, hitting on 2 is for pure value, and you can really appreciate it because then you also have the lethals, right? Or you can give yourself an additional strength from the kill rigs. So you're already sitting there with your big choppas, and you give them +1 from the wall, then +1 from the kill rig. Boom, getting stuck in, boys. That's legit. I like that. And that's a weird skirmish, right? You're like, oh, you got a 4-up end zone and a 3-up base save. Oh, you got a demon save. I got something for you. Whoa! So shout out to Stefan Olinsky and Death or Glory for doing great. And of course, check out their channels. Hopefully they talked about it. I didn't get to see if they did. And if they did, I'll be sure to give it a nice listen. Right? So next we go into the final get, which the final get brought us the Dread Mob. So we're still seeing the Dread Mob after we've seen them with like a 30% win rate on Meta Monday. Right? What was this? We pulled up my Meta Monday right now. Bam, 30% win rate, right? Let me see you guys seeing it. Boom, here it is. Yeah, what's up? You like that? You like that, guys? So someone still went 4-1 with Dread Mob, but he had a 30% win rate. That's what I'm saying, guys. They're always gonna mess up, you know, the numbers like that. All you Dreadmob players, including me. Like I said earlier on stream, if you didn't see, a guy decided I'm going to bring 2 Stompas and a Gorkanaut to an RTT. 1 Grot unit was on that list, and then some mechs, and he went 2-1. All right, whatever, dude. He very much could have lost all his games, but you know the dude was just ridiculous. So shout out to him. So Bjorn, let's take a look at Bjorn. Sorry if I say your name wrong. Maybe I'm saying it wrong. Dreadmob, as he did have some fun stuff. Oh, hold on. I'll read that chat. Actually, you got my attention. We have the characters Big Mac with shock attack on, get finder goggles, essentially an auto take in Dreadmob. Then we have 3 war bosses in Zagrot Wartsnaga. 2 battle line units, one of them being a big unit of Grots for the super runs, and then a simple minimum size unit of Gretchen for backfield holding and screening. 10 Ludas. Actually, let me see if I could see on here because I didn't get the spanners on this. Let me look real quick. I don't want to mess with. Yeah, he didn't put what the spanners had. So you guys know, I did check that twice. Then he had 3 5-man units of Nobz. They're all carrying power claws, followed by a battle wagon with a zap gun, all the fixins, death roller, and he did have hard case. 3 max units of killer cans, my boys. Yeah, he did it. Someone did it. 3 5-man units of 6-man units of killer cans. Haven't seen that in a hot minute, to be honest, guys. Really like seeing that. Really tickled my fancy, let's say. 2 units of Storm Boys, and then 1 dedicated transport in the truck. So what I should have actually done first, you get, because I was too excited, is actually show this event. So this was the Invasion 40K event in Norway, where they had, what was it, 94 players? Yeah, 94 players. And they were running a WTC terrain with some GW modifications. I never played on that. Don't really necessarily know what that is. But let's give a shout out in a nice wall for Happy Crumper right here, Jonathan Arkin, for getting first place at this event. And then the org players like who here got second. But shout out to Happy Crumper, dude. Let's go. That's fantastic. Whoa, you know, I seen the little thumbnail pop up. You want a golden ticket? Shout out to you. You get. We'll be happy when you join the Great WAAAGH again. But you know, as right now, doing a great job. And of course, you gotta love getting stuck in, lads. That's where it's at, man. That's where the satisfaction of victory is. And you know, maybe you know, maybe the odd terrain also explains the Mega Nobz, sorry, the Mega Nobz, the Killicans here. I was wondering that. Not that it's odd terrain, like it's weird, just maybe it's slightly different. I'm not sure. I know a lot of people first thing looking at this though would consider like, maybe was there something different about this crane that allowed the Killicans to work, or was it Bjorn just a Chad, right? Was he just a straight Chad and just made this work? We've seen it before where people ran Killicans, so it's not unheard of. Even max unit of Killicans, but not this late into Nexus or the of having the Codex. So really caught my interest. So anybody knows Bjorn, or we can get some information from him, I would love to hear it as to how he was able to pull that off. But real quick, from Brother Tabares, he said, Cult of Speed fighting with Null Maidens, Vigil, and 40K army. Best army in 40K. For best army in 40K? Okay. I thought you were saying, where's somebody let me know where that Cult of Speed player is. A shout out to, what's up, Brandon? And Benito for the triple kill rigs, of course. How you doing, Red Sox? And Metaphoric Dragon, what's up? So what's everybody? So yeah, just want to say hello to chat because I seen you guys were getting here. You guys were getting all stuck in. So I'm excited to show off our boys Dreadmob path to victory as he went technically undefeated. Yes, he did go technically undefeated with the Dreadmob, going 5-0-1. So let's take a look at Bjorn's path to victory with the Dreadmob to be undefeated. So in this case, he has the Storm Space Wolves. Storm Lance Task Force with the Space Wolves. What am I saying here? Sorry when it pulls up like this, guys. I know it looks a little bit like gibberish, but here it is. We have a Lieutenant with a Combi Bolter, a Wolf Guard Battle Leader on Thunderwolf, another Wolf Guard Battle Leader on Thunderwolf with the enhancement here. I don't. Yeah, for the Hunter's Instinct, so they can come in early. We have Wolf Guard Battle Leader on Thunderwolf. We have another Wolf Guard, Wolf Lord, excuse me, guys, and then the enhancement if you're in the storm, and then Logan Grimnar just on foot. No big sleigh ride. 3 5-man units of assault intercessors with jump pack. He has a 5-man units of the Hounds of Mordecai. So these guys are like anti psyker dudes, kind of weird. An infiltrator squad. Maybe he just like hates Thousand Suns, so I can appreciate that actually. 5-man unit of infiltrators, followed by a 5-man unit of scouts, 2 Wolfen, and then the dreaded 3 max units of Thunderwolf cavalry with storm shields, and then 1 Vindicator. So low key, guys, this Vindicator is very, very, very durable to shooting, right? He will armor of contempt, he will pop smoke, and you will have a very hard time even with your fancy Luda brick with big shells for bigger gets but that's where you take advantage of the fact that you have Get Finder goggles to help offset that, right? But you will have a hard time killing this dude. So actually, I usually try to say focus on killing the Thunderwolf cavalry, which you can actually do because shout out, he ended up having, like I always say, Zagra Wartsnaga, and Zagra Wartsnaga's super runs really, really help you mess with this Thunderwolf cavalry unit. It helps you kind of redirect those cavalry into places you want them to be or not be, and hopefully you want them on the objective so that your looters can go off here and get their shots off. But mind you, he has all these killer cams with rockets as well, so he can end up getting the rockets off and just constantly shooting blast into him. Sure, they're -1 to hit, but you're just going to take the risk anyways, because what do you care? You're going to get stuck in combat and still take them out too. Really love to see that. And of course, a bunch of damage 3 from all the punches from those killer cans. One thing you don't see also with this list is there's not a bunch of long range shooting. That means you're going to bog them down with the super runs. You have all of these Nobz that are sitting inside of a battle wagon and or the truck. You have the Ludas that can come in from reserves or pop out of one of these trucks or transport, so they can actually get line of sight to where they want you. So if the Thunderwolf player just sits back normally, and sometimes they'll sit back because they can commit whenever they want with speed, you can, if they're sitting on their home objective, you're like, sure, I can actually move, like we talked about with Mr. Initiative. You can put your one reliable unit of Ludas into a transport, get the line of sight you want with the truck, disembark, and then shoot them as you want freely. As long as you're getting advantage of the rerolls to hit. So this is a very technical list, but to overcome. But the fact that the killer cans don't have to, go toe to toe with shooting, besides the Vindicator. Sorry, I should have mentioned the Vindicator. Vindicator's nasty, but Vindicator, like I said, you might want to ignore unless you know he's not going to pop the CP for shooting. You ignore him and you get stuck into him with combat, because with shooting, like I said, he can do cover and armor of contempt because he can pop smoke. So even if you get a good line of sight, which you probably won't with all your big fat unit of killer cans, he's still taking 2 up saves even if you pop big shells for bigger gets and reroll hits. So it's not always your, even though it's really feels really good to know that you can pop 2 CP into there and do the math into a lot of different units. Know what units when to commit that into. Right. And then, like Brandon's saying in chat, that's a big point as well, is that clinking claws allow you to get up to damage 4 and +2 strength on that. That means you can get +2 strength. The kill cans are strength 8. Then they go up to strength 10. On the wall, they become strength 11. And then, like we said, they can get sustained. They can get lethal because of the button they're pressing, go up to damage 4. And that messes the Thunderwolf cavalry up. Of course, it's not going to get easy to get to them. They can reactive move. Hopefully he has stuff in the way. But like I said, you can chip those guys down with your rockets. Don't focus on the Vindicator unless he's on an objective, and your Ludas are definitely going to be going off there. So it's interesting. Really nice list here, and just kind of really fun. I really find this list to be interesting with the battle wagon as well, that he was able to probably put a lot of these Nobz in here and just kind of chuck them into people's faces saying, hey, if you shoot this wagon, my killer cans get you. If you shoot my killer cans, all the stuff in my battle wagons get to you. So really like to see that. And that's how the first list matchup went. Take out Thunderwolf Cav right away, and then at a 6th round event on the first game with your killer can list must feel really, really good. Then he went into the Tyranids, which Tyranids, historically are one of those hard units into Orks or something like a killer can, right? So let's see what's going on here. We have a Hive Tyrant, a Neural Tyrant. Oh, actually, hold on. We have a 5 WAAAGH Tactic gifted memberships from E-Cup, my boy. Whoa, let's go. Very generous of you, lad. I really, really appreciate that. And with that being said, if you were lucky enough to receive one of these memberships and from very generous ECOP, thank you very much, my git. You should now, well, not now, actually, you're watching this, hopefully. Go to the community post tab for the members. Check it out from the recent post, which we're asking questions from Mr. Initiative from 40K in 40 minutes, as we're going to do a sit down conversation with them live. So we want to get some questions set up that we can get some good WAAAGH energy flowing. So thank you, ECOP, for that. Hopefully we get some more questions involved in that post and get some more lad memberships. So thank you very much. Very generous of you, and I appreciate that. Yeah, can I get a wall? Blanca Gomez, wall. High class goblin. Thank you, you gets. And yeah, Brandon, shout out to you there too. Definitely the killer can, sorry, the battle wagon can be used as a screen for the killer cans because he's actually big enough to stop something from getting into their big old thick unit. Let me take this off real quick. Thank you, Bump. I really appreciate that, dude. One thing here he does have. Let's continue to go over what he had on the list because I got distracted by that generous super gifted membership. So we have a Hive Tyrant with perfectly adapted, a Neural Tyrant. Oh, what one unit of gargoyles. Like I said, they can run forward, advance, shoot, and then move after they've done that. Really good for screening. One unit of Termagants, a Biovore, 2 Lictors, 2 units of Ravengers, and then a nice Carnifex unit. This is actually a Doc Effects, right? Because they're able to get rerolls on this. This unit is brutal in Overwatch. You really, really have to respect this unit. This unit tears through something like a Catan, for example, because you're just putting straight volume on it with lethal. In this case, we're going to assume that he chose sustain because he's choosing into infantry. I'm sorry, he probably chose lethal because he's going into killicants in this matchup, and there's not a lot of infantry. So you have to understand that this was a factor because you put old One Eye in there. This unit is going to reroll the hit roll with all their DACA, and old One Eye is going to crump you if you get stuck in. So right away, you can see this list actually has some tools. 2 Exocrines, 2 Maliceptors, and a Caranofax with the Rupture Cannon. Very, very touch and go list on here. I mean, you'd have to go with this list on here. Luckily, it is kind of elite. It's kind of elite. The units that are cheaper, like these Ravengers for kind of skirmishing and stuff like that, they're getting crumped. They're getting picked up with rockets that are all over the table. Nothing's really safe. Lictors typically in Orc matchups can kind of be like, I am a lone op, and you still can't shoot me anyways because your guns suck. And then in this case, Killican's like, boy, you better not let me get close. You better not let me get close, right? So I love that. Another thing to keep in mind, like we said, Maliceptor is making you unreliable to hit, yet you still appreciate that Killicans can throttle into them once you get stuck in with combat. They give you the very nice, sweet threshold of a damage 4 attack, like we talked about with the clanking claws. So that's freaking fantastic, and I really love to see this list. Like I said, this list really tickled my fancy because you could see he's going into a bunch of different matchups that people wouldn't necessarily consider easy, even with something like War Horde that's typically considered the best, detachment for Orks. Like you're talking about, like one thing to keep in mind, guys, yes, and then there's not tough bodies here to keep the center, so you're going to have to pressure them, which is what I said. They have no skirmishing. They're really relying on these Maliceptors to pretty much take the brunt of the hit. A lot of people would, I'm not sure on the Rupture Cannon, and this is one of those things as an Orc player you should understand too, is yes, he's going to have 2 really good Rupture Cannon shots at you, right? He might kill 2 if he rolls good, might just straight up kill 2 Killicans. But if he doesn't, you're just walking right up the field towards him, and now you can just start punching him because he doesn't give you the threat of the Overwatch. He doesn't have the Flamer. That's something that these Carnifexes have. So you do have to offset that, but I do think the Tyrannofax, typically with the Acid Spray, would be the one you stick into the middle of the table. Like I said, he can pop a Feel No Pain. You could be in range of the Maliceptors to make you -1 to hit, so you're much harder to get through that. But in this case, he simply didn't have that unit, and mind you, Big Mac with Shock Attack Gun allows you to actually shred something like a Tyrannofax if it stands on the tip of the middle objective, and even if it pops his Feel No Pain, because you're in my face. Even if they're standing in cover, you have -4 AP from that, and you're ignoring cover on there. Typically, they have a 2-up armor save. They're relying on that. They don't really have invulns unless they're in the Nexus fleet, which they're not. Therefore, Ludas, for that very, very cheap point cost, can actually trade out with something like a Tyrannofax that's typically not even a unit like Beast snaggers on foot can do. And in that case, a lot of the time the beast snagger boys aren't useful unless it's War Horde in that. So I really love to see that. And you're staying out of the Maleceptor issue of that compounding ability. So really, it's just one Tyrannofex, a couple of Maleceptors, and then everything else can kind of get run over after they try to screen with the gargoyles. So like I said, when you go into Tyranids, you go fast and you go hard, as in you really try to kill them and not really pay tippy toe around Tyranids unless you're besides the Overwatch. You don't have to respect the Overwatch, like I said, but you want to pressure them and get them off the table as they're trying to play the same ideal of a game and identity of I'm going to trade bodies for points. So typically they're not willing to die. I mean, they're willing to die. That list was a little bit more elite, like I said, having a big unit of one eyes and Carnifex and a bunch, but all of those things he's willing to trade for points. So shout out to Bajorn for getting that through and making that work with so many Killicans and the Battle Wagon. Really like that. Now, going into his third game, this is where he had a tie, 43-point tie. Goodness. Can you guys guess what this is going to be? I'll give you guys 2 seconds. 1, 2. Get your guesses going because it kind of surprised me too. Oh, I think I went one ahead. Yes, I did. All right. His third matchup. Boom. Yes, it is World Eaters. He ended up tying with World Eaters with the 43-point game, 43 point. It's because this mission was supply drop, smoke and mirrors, and hammer and anvil. That's why. That's actually a good guess too, Brandon. So we have Angron, Karn the Betrayer, Lord Invocatus, and then World Eaters, Master of Execution. I'll probably pull him. I think I took that guy down on accident. Maybe I'll pull him back up again. We have 2 units of Jackals, 1 big unit of Khorne Berserkers. That's very much just to escort the World Eaters Master of Executions. And then he has a 5-man unit of Khorne Berserkers. That's for Karn, because Karn is going to just want to fight on death anyways. This is like their sacrificial skirmish. Go in the game early, go kill you, try to take out one of your interesting characters. Then he has 2 Rhinos. That way he could put both of those Berserker units in them. 1 unit of 8-bound, 2 unit of Exalted 8-bound, 1 being a super brick, and then a simple 5-man unit of World Eaters. I have a feeling. Have we seen this list? No, we didn't. Okay. This list almost looks identical to another list we were looking at in America of World Eaters. Goodness, the matchup there. I was gonna guess the mirror matchup. Oh, that's a good guess too, dude. I like that. That was a good list. A good guess too. As for World Eaters, typically now, this is one thing I always want you to keep in mind when you're playing Dread Mob, right? And people sometimes grief me for Dread Mob takes. And hear me out. I know what you're talking about. I know what your concerns are. And this is one of those concerns that typically World Eaters are a favorable matchup for Orks and War Horde. Reason being is how much fight on death you have and the cheap models you use. And Orks are one of those armies that's more likely to have combined arms on their list. Some World Eaters, just because how much points they have to pay for it, isn't worth it. Sometimes they would put, Brigands back in the day onto that. But in a lot of the times, they just don't really have shooting like we showed at this list. This list doesn't really have shooting. Sometimes they'll bring Lord of Skulls and stuff like that. But in a lot of cases, as a list we're looking at right here, this is just a bunch of bombs, right? There's a bunch of, I just want to kill you. You have Angron, just run up and kill you. Karn, just run up and trade with you. Lord Invocatus, pressure, scout, get into you. Master of Executions, if you shoot at me, I blood surge into you and get closer. I'm willing to let almost all my Zerkers die so that I could actually just get into you and take out one of your characters and have all the leftover damage 3 bleed into your other unit. You have 2 units of Jackals because you're going to constantly go forward and you're going to sticky stuff as you go and you die. Literally, that's what they're looking to do. Warriors going to go try to punch you off the table. Yes, hell of heck of pressure. They're going to just push you off the table, and then hopefully their sticky kind of helps them win the game. And that's it, because you can see then he just has 2 bricks of Exalted and 1 small unit of 8-bound. The small unit of 8-bound, which I think people sleep on the time, is actually kind of a support unit. When you have all those Exalted and you have Angron, you have all those Zerker units, a lot of the time that 1 unit of 3 8-bound can be used just for his aura. The Beacon of Rage, so he gives reroll 1s to hit, and then if they're below half strength, they reroll the whole hit roll. There's a good amount of times that a really elite level World Eaters player simply sticking one of those on his unit is because he's just trying to give his unit. Oh my god, I had a bunch of weird lists up right there. I'm gonna get rid of some of these lists. I was on it right there. Okay. A lot of the time they just want to run at you with all these missiles and then die, and then you're just left in the battlefield with them having sticky objectives and you have nothing left. Or they pressured you in your deployment zone and then you never got out to the battlefield to play for primary. But when you're playing with them, something like this 8-bound unit's actually more support role. So that means you're simply running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pretty much 5 big missile units into the army, which means if I fight on dev with you twice and then I get the initiative on you twice, which is kind of how the WAAAGH turn goes, you've lost most of your missiles and then you just got a couple little skirmishes left after that. So having more units and having War Horde is typically the weakness to them there. Yet in this case, he was running Dread Mob and he wasn't running a whole bunch of Gretchen and bodies. So he had to play super, super cagey. A lot of the time, the World Eater player will decide because you have Zod, he's not going to just run in to commit you. One is because there's a chance that you're actually surviving if he takes something small and puts it into you. Let's just say he's not an experienced player. He runs a basic World Eater 8-bound 3-man unit into your Zod unit. He's not killing them, especially on the WAAAGH, right? So he can't sacrifice any of his bricks of value, significant value into your Zod unit. So he has to kind of slow roll it and try to get to you. Like we brought up before, the Battle Wagon ends up playing like a big move blocking thing, especially for something like Angron, where you need something big to get in the way. If those 8-bound at any time expose themselves, you're subject to just overwatch them with your killicans, because even killing a couple of them saves you. It really makes the difference here. And like I always say, if you're a cunning git, you know that in a melee matchup, especially with this much pressure, you're keeping the Storm Boys on the table. Yes, you're keeping the Storm Boys on the table in this case. They want to get in the ray. They want to grenade somebody. Like I said, they want to get away, delay the enemy so they can't get straight charges. They had a lot of infantry, so they're going through terrain. And then that one simple truck is hoping, and I think in this case, for the Ludus to get a line of sight once these guys have to stand on objective, because at some point they have to stand on the objectives. And you don't want to not have anything that can shoot and kill them. Of course, they have jackals to throw away, which is why they're so important and sticky. So as much as we didn't expect that, as I see in chat with making a bunch of different lists, I can understand Dread Mob being so low scoring on supply drop and smoke and mirrors, especially because people can pull stuff from reserve and then decide last minute. I mean, put stuff in reserve last minute. So interesting how that ended up winning. Not everybody got low scores there. You can see several people got good scores in that third round, but it is a World Eater factor there into, just Dread Mob not necessarily liking that. It's one of those things that Dread Mob opens up your ability to beat other armies that typically Orks might lose to, and gives you at least different looks and ways to play into them. But some of the stuff you typically beat as Orks with War Horde kind of easily makes it a bit harder of a game and more cagey game to play. So understand that if you're trading from War Horde to something like Dread Mob. Then we go into his fourth game. His fourth game was again more World Eaters, but it wasn't, as tying and pressuring. In this case, he had just he had a 91 point win here. So let's take a look at the difference of this list. And in this mission, this was actually Purge the Foe, right? So we have Angron, Karn the Betrayer, 1 unit of Jackals, and then he has 1 big unit of Zerkers, another big unit of Zerkers, another big unit of Zerkers, and another big unit of Zerkers. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4 Zerker big bricks, and then he had 2 5-man units of Zerkers. That's the most list of Zerkers I've seen in like the entire edition of reviewing since the channel started. Fantastic job. I appreciate that. Then he went for 5 Rhinos spam and 2 World Eaters Chaos Spawn. I would say one thing you don't want when going into something that's like a bunch of killicans and Nobz, because he still has 3 5-man units of Nobz here, and a Ludabomb, is a bunch of straight up Marine chassis bodies, right? So that makes a huge difference in that case when you're not running the 8-bound and everything like that. So not to say that it was like an easy win or anything, but just know that every single activation you're getting great value and killing potential from all this, because the World Eaters can be like -1 damage, and to 8-bound that sucks because they'll have a Fiona pain and it can -1 damage from your killicans, so you'd have to pop CP to try to offset that. Into the Berserkers, they're still going to be damaged 2 into them, and then if you definitely pop the CP, you're definitely getting value there, because you're like, all right, now I'm damaged 3, and you still have your feeling pain, probably still super dead, and you're dead from the rockets, and you're dead from the Nobz. So it ends up kind of compounding really quickly, just having a bunch of Marine bodies. So shout out to him for winning that. I'm sure that was a very satisfying game to kill World Eaters like that, just pick them off in handfuls. But I shout out to the World Leaders player for running something like that. Really fun and scary by pure volume, right? Then we go into his 5th game, where he went into Blood Angels. So we have, like we said, they're going to get their book and everything like that. So we're not going to spend too deep into this. Just know that Sons of Sanguinius is especially potent into Orks. I'm sure they're obviously still going to have this rule going into their book. So don't be surprised if that's what you're still seeing, because taking chain swords to strength 6, taking power fists to strength 10, these are all perfect thresholds to break specifically for Orks. I know there's other armies that it matters for, but specifically for Orks, that really much hurts. T-shirt saves, and we don't like that, because just putting pure volume of wounds on us is just enough to kill us, because we don't really get to good saves. So won't spend too much time on this, because it's going to change. But we have Commander Dante, a Judiciary Squad, Le Martis, 2 units of the Sanguinary Priest with jump packs, very potent for their Feel No Pains, and then the Sanguinor. I used to call the World Eaters Master of Executions, the Master of Indirect Combat, but the Sanguinor is truly the Master of Indirect Combat, as he gets to freely just jump into the game and start fighting people and take out characters. So little cheeky, a little cagey, not necessarily love seeing those kind of roles, to be honest, but he's super great utility. But you never know, you might just lose that kind of ability in the book. Kind of hoping they do. We have an Assault Intercessor Squad, followed by 2 big bricks of Assault Intercessor with jump packs, a Blade Guard Veteran Squad, a Death Company Dreadnought. This guy's forever fighting. They FAQ that. Yes, they forever want you to forever fight. That's hilarious. A big Death Company with jump pack unit with power fist. Like I said, these guys all get the strength 10. Disgusting. Then he has, so mind you, they have strength 10 power fist, and they get +1 to wound as Lance ability, as for your 1 CP. 2 units of scouts, and then a big old unit of veteran jump pack Marines with storm shields and vanguard weapons. 2 jump pack units get the same priest. In this game, he did end up winning with an 80-point win. Like I said, we do quite well into Space Marine chassis with that kind of dread mob list. Mind you, a very good Blood Angels player is significantly different than a casual intermediate one. Like we can see, Happy Crumper ended up winning this event as Blood Angels. Not saying that this wasn't a legit win. Just know that it can still be difficult for a lot of Orc players on there. That being said, right, typically that 5-up Feel No Pain coming from the Sang Priest into the bunch of these Marines with the 4-up invulns from the Storm Shields can be problematic for Orcs. Yet, in this case, because you can have Killicans already with the flat damage 3 punch shooting, flat damage 3 punching, access to sustain, makes things actually quite interesting in that matchup, and quite significantly different, because you can punish them and actually kill these units. You can actually shoot away the Death Company Dreadnought when typically other Orc armies can't, right? Other Orc armies can't really shoot away the Dreadnought. Maybe they'll last cannon and hurt it and throw some grenades at it, but in this case, you can choose to commit enough resources to killing him. So that's all I'll say about that, because Blood Angels are going to change, and everybody's pretty familiar with how they're tearing things up in the meta right now. Clearing some screens here real quick, my boys. So then we go into his last game. So right now, our boy literally still undefeated. So he goes into his last game with some pressure, undefeated. He knows he's fighting for that 2nd place spot at least. Oh, at best, excuse me. At best. So he goes into his last matchup, which is Chaos Cult Space Marines. He does have a Dark Commune, another Dark Commune, and a 3rd Dark Commune with Abaddon the Deployer, Cypher, right? Cypher has that ability to increase CP when you get within range of them, and he's a lone op. Very freaking annoying. 3 units of 10 cultists, followed by 3 units of Accursed Cultist, with 3 units of Forge Fiend and Ectoplasm Cannons, and a Hellbrew. I've played something like this before. If you've never played it before, it can really, really much catch you off guard. This list will just blend units with a very surprising amount. It's funny because it has a bunch of little crappy individual wound models, like 1 wound models, and units that do 1 damage, but then they have a bunch of dudes that they have a pack of the kind of like fat berserker dudes that do 2 damage at strength 6 -2. They can end up getting a bunch of buffs into this and make it devastatingly killy. Mind you, this unit can really run across the battlefield and put the initiative on you as an Orc player, as it can advance and charge. Very devastating, and it has the Ectoplasma cannons as well for that shooting support. If it's ever anything that doesn't have armor save that needs to be cracked, because these guys do have suffer from AP. Of course, some of the guys do have a bit of AP, but some of them just simply don't. I've seen versions of this list that have more bodies. And it's interesting because you have Abaddon here. This ends up acting as like making these Forge Fiends quite reliable alongside the Hellbrute. So this is like a combination of the typical, I'm going to pressure you with these big breaks of killing / durable units because they're going to get character support from the Dark Commune and punching support. But then I'm also going to have a nice shooting gun line back here with Abaddon, with Forge Fiends, and then Hellbrutes stacking all their shooting capabilities and having a nasty amount of output. So that's a legit list. It might look kind of silly because you've never seen it before, but it could really catch you off guard. And it's funny because I very much didn't play directly into this list, but when I first played the Accursed Cultist, I used max killicans just like this guy did, and I got mollywopped because I didn't know they did like that, so I ended up tweaking the list and I did better the second time around. But these guys is very, very potent list, especially if you don't know what's going on. So shout out to Bjorn for handling that because he got an 85-point win. One thing I will say is typically these stupid accursed cultists with the Dark Commune, because they're hoping, I believe, they get feel no pains and they have a dumb amount of wounds and bodies, they're not used to really getting clapped all the time. Like super reliably. Killicans actually allow you to clap them quite reliably in multiple phases, so that felt really good to be able to annihilate them when I did. And having Ludas can allow you to actually shoot down fields of Forge Fiends. When I speak about Killicans not being able to shoot reliably into stuff, I'm mostly speaking about stuff that doesn't cover with a 2-up armor save. If it's something that's like a 3-up armor save, not great toughness, not a ton of wounds into it, like 16 wounds with access to feel no pains all the time, you can end up putting damage onto them and killing them like a Forge Fiend, which will behoove you to do with your Killican matchup, because then it's just your Accursed Cultist in the way, and it comes down to screening. A lot of screening with that to keep them back. Zod really makes a difference in this matchup. I keep mentioning to you guys, and I will not stop beating this head-to-head horse to my fellow lads. If you have not committed or found a way to start in how should I say this word? I'm just dropping my mind. Incorporating scouts or infiltrators into your list archetypes and designs, regardless of your detachment. You are handicapping yourself and you're playing into your opponent's benefit and into the meta of Nexus as a whole. You're losing tools and assets here. So very much a lot of the different armies are going to have scouting, infiltrating, pressuring. A lot of armies want to just throw you back and kill you. Other armies want to throw you back and take position of the board and shoot you away or delay the game. Orks, being a one-turn army of WAAAGH go turn a lot of the time before either we're choosing to be durable or choosing to kill you, means you really, really have to understand that positioning, board control, attrition rate, and the pace of your game and management of your resources is huge. Therefore, having scout to meet other scouts or infiltrators to deny scouts, stuff like that makes a huge difference in matchups. And that's why I can't stress enough how much right now Zod's my number one unit for what I choose to incorporate for that. Nonetheless, shout out to Bjorn for this freaking sick list, because he did overcome the Cursed Culted list, coming in second place at this Norway Invasion 40K GT. So shout out to Bjorn Olsen for representing the Dread Mob and the Orks with an undefeated list. And even though Dread Mob had a 30% win rate, and literally nobody on the competitive scene takes Dread Mob seriously, at least at the popular. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that without being too zealous. Not in the general understanding of the Ork community do they even understand that Dread Mob can actually be played to a successful level. A lot of the time they just see it as being fun and they think just play War Horde because War Horde is just straight up strong, and it is. But if you want something different, or in Bjorn's case, you want something very powerful, here's a very interesting take on the Dread Mob finally getting the walkers on the table like we always want, and doing what a lot of us wish we could do, which run max killicans and go undefeated at a GT, right? So let's take a look at this list one more time. We have a Big Mac with shock attack gun with Gift Finder goggles, 3 war bosses, and then Zagra Wartsnagger, 1 big unit of Gretchen, followed by 1 small unit of Gretchen, 1 Ludabomb, followed by 3 5-man units of Nobz with Power Claws, a Battle Wagon with Ard Case and Sap Gun, 3 max unit of Killicans, all with rockets, 2 5-man units of Storm Boys, and 1 basic truck. A lot of the times, I like to think that truck was used for the looters getting line of sight on positioning and shooting something when they want, and the Battle Wagons having a bunch of killing stuff. But you could argue that they simply put 2 units of Nobz in the truck, or even 1, right? So A lot of ways this could actually they put 2 for sure. A lot of the ways that this could go. I really like Bjorn's list, really out of the box, and made me really want to try Killer Kanz again. Maybe I'm missing something, or maybe I just need to play better, right? So shout out to Bjorn Olsen for the Killer Can and Dread Mob. So everybody, that is a status of how the Orks are doing. I think points are on their way, and for the most part, the understanding of Orks and what we need and what we lack is quite understood and accepted across the general 40k community. Therefore, I'm quite hopeful for point changes and stuff. I most likely will get a video out about it. You know, a lot of people aren't doing them and stuff we're expecting. I'll just say that I do think Orks require a bit of, you know, re-rules, kind of touching and looking at, even in some cases. Oh, someone said Bjorn in Bjorn, the J is silent. Oh, Bjorn. So Bjorn. Okay, Bjorn, kind of like born, but Bjorn. Bjorn. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Wapo. So Bjorn, great job for that. So Orks do need kind of like some of their rules kind of looked at a little bit, maybe some of the detachments like the hunt to be a bit more interesting. Some point decreases right off the top of my head that I'd like to see is our walkers like dread mobs, killer cans, stuff like commandos for infiltration. We're paying a bit too much of a premium on that. Would love to see that go down. And for tank busters to simply be deleted and brought in with a new kit. So GW, give Orcs some love. And for the most part, thank goodness for the rise of the Green Tide and the Orc players finding their way in this late into Nexus. So I'm glad and happy for the community. A lot of you guys keep your hopes up. You know, there's just the ebb and flow of 40k. It's really not that devastating or that big deal. You know, if anything, whenever these times happen, they'll make you better as an Orc player, because you'll have to really rely on your reliable assets and your resources, your movement, like your core basic abilities such as Palance, Consolidates, Tagging, Wrapping, taking the most out of the firepower you have as an Orc player. You end up really squeezing those out. So then when we get good rules, you don't look over all those little things. You take advantage of those as well, which takes you to the next level of success as an Orc player. And once you see these next levels of success of an Orc player, it makes you reinforce your understanding of the Orc player and the Orc faction as a whole. So there's a lot of benefits in just getting stuck in as we are. But if you are taking a break from Orcs too, that's good too. We hope to see you back. So nonetheless, there's always one thing to keep in mind, that I should read the chats. So shout out to the chats. Let's see what's being said here. It goes, he said that was a copying of Derek's list that won Nova. Okay, cool. Thanks for letting me know that, because that makes sense what that list was like. You know, that's a quite potent killing list. You should make a video and you'll see. Yeah, I definitely will though. Oh, shout out to Mr. Initiative Jim Jones. Don't worry, everybody. Don't worry, buddy. I told everybody about the post right now so we can get some questions going from the chat. That way we can have a nice, fun conversation with Mr. Jim Jones. And you're not late. You're right on time, because there's always one thing to keep in mind. Is don't cross the wall, because we knock your teeth out. Whoa.